Hello, my name is Bryce, and this is my channel, Striving Intellect. And today we're going to talk about privacy with personal information. And this type of personal information is actually your personal DNA or genetic information. And whether or not you share it with companies or private institutions, who you share it with, and maybe some of the downsides to sharing it with the giant company. Recently, the giant corporation 23andMe has just declared bankruptcy. And they actually have a whole host of people's information, which they may or may not sell if they actually sell their company. So obviously there can be massive ramifications to taking personal DNA tests and checking your genetics with private companies. Obviously, those companies can be sold with the information. You actually sign all of that information away whenever you sign your disclosure agreements with them. So there are downsides to looking into your ancestry. So 23andMe bankruptcy filing sparks privacy fears as DNA data of millions goes up for sale. I mean, it seems like an obvious outcome. I don't know exactly what people thought they would do with their genetic information, but this seems like the logical conclusion. But let's keep reading. 23andMe has filed a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, raising concerns about the future of customers' genetic data. Anne Wojcicki has stepped down as CEO and intends to bid on 23andMe as it seeks new owners. The California Attorney General urged customers to delete their data prior to the bankruptcy filing, highlighting privacy risks. The company plans to sell substantially all of its assets and continue operations during the process. That means they will sell all of that genetic information to the highest bidder, I assume. Obviously, it's information from potentially millions of Americans. So I guess we'll have to see what the United States government has to say about that. But I actually have a couple articles pulled up. And if anybody's used 23andMe or any of the other genetic testing companies, then there are ways to actually get rid of that information. Right here, it actually has a couple steps. Let me read through this real quick, and then we'll go through the steps to delete your information from 23andMe. What to know about your data after 23andMe files for bankruptcy. Customers of the genetic testing company 23andMe have voiced some concerns over their data after the company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protections over the weekend. And this is March 25th, 2025. 23andMe said that the bankruptcy filing won't change the way it stores or protects data. According to the board members of 23andMe, 23andMe is committed to continuing to safeguard customer data, and the data privacy will be an important consideration in any future sale. John Bringardner of Debwire notes that any new buyers of 23andMe will have to comply with regulatory approvals that customer data won't end up in the unscrupulous hands. Obviously, there would be potentially governmental oversights and regulations. Most likely it's a good thing, I would say, because you just don't want them selling your genetic information to anybody. So there are actually some steps to delete your information. If anybody used this website or any other websites and you're worried about it, if you're uncertain about your genetic data, the customers can request that it be deleted by 23andMe. First step, you log into your account. Second step, you go to the settings and scroll to 23andMe data. Third step, you click on view and scroll to delete data. Fourth step, click permanently delete data. And then fifth step, confirm your request. After that confirmation, after you confirm data deletion, this process cannot be reversed. The issue is that I'm sure there are legal regulations and other things like that saying that they have to delete the information completely, but obviously, theoretically, you can't necessarily trust that a company is just going to delete that information, right? And if, they are on the up and up and they do delete it all the way, then that is a good thing, because generally speaking, you wouldn't want such personal information about yourself or your family to just be out there for individuals to buy at the highest bid, especially what is millions and millions of people's genetic information. So we're just going to go on to this next article. 5 biggest risks to sharing your DNA with consumer genetic testing companies. And obviously there's always going to be risks to anything that you do on the internet. I think the issue with a lot of these things are just putting information out on the internet at all is you don't necessarily know if you can actually delete that information or what people are going to do with that. So risk number 1, hacking. Obviously, this is not a risk for genetic testing the industry alone faces, but it is an industry that has a unique set of information on its customers. And this information can be used for a large amount of things. So obviously, all of these websites are, they can be hacked. Like, there is no question about it. And they have a trove of information. Issue number 2, who may profit on your DNA? The answer is not you, obviously. You're paying these companies to look into your ancestry, and you're signing a disclosure agreement saying that they actually own that information. So they could potentially sell that information. Obviously, it may not be to individuals with negative intentions, but who knows? Maybe they do sell it to somebody who does have nefarious intentions. I mean, it seems pretty obvious that whenever you give information like that away to a private company, you're taking a risk. Number 3, laws covering genetic privacy are not broad enough, experts say. Generally speaking, I would assume that there aren't many laws for something like this, seeing that it's so new. Obviously, they've been doing it for 20 years or so, but I would still say that's pretty new technology, especially to be in the private industries. So there probably aren't that much consumer protection laws, laws protecting citizens' privacy. There's probably not a whole lot covering that. So there's always going to be risks associated with this, and there aren't going to be laws to protect you from those risks. Number 4, law enforcement knows these companies have your DNA, and they may want it. They're already asking. Yeah, obviously, if you have a database or a bank of DNA that people willingly give over, the law enforcements are going to be extremely interested in this. This is a catalog and a database of potentially millions and millions of individuals who they could use this information to actually prove whether or not individuals have committed crimes. This is a massive breach of personal privacy, although individuals who give their information away two massive companies doing so are taking the risk themselves. I don't necessarily think most people think about that or even care, but there's obviously going to be risks associated with it. You shouldn't commit crimes, by the way, but if you do and you're in one of these databases, then a police department or a law enforcement agency is probably going to be able to get it, and they will have a database of your genetic information. Number 5, the company's situation or privacy statement can change. So this would actually concern what we're talking about right now. 23andMe is filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and that means that they may just sell all of this information, and their privacy agreements will probably change when this does change hands. So obviously, best case scenario, they sell it to a individual or a private company that isn't necessarily going to do anything nefarious or do anything illegal with this material, but that is always going to be something that is possible. So people should be very, very careful with their private information, and even more so with their genetic information. This is extremely important. All right, last article from the LA Times. The risk of sharing your DNA with online companies aren't a future concern. They're here now. And to give you an idea, this was actually written October 21st, 2024. So this is about half a year or so, give or take, before 23andMe filed for bankruptcy. So they already knew that there was going to be issues. And again, it seems obvious that this would be the logical conclusion. You sell your genetic information to individuals on the internet, and obviously it makes sense that they would sell it to others. You're paying for a service to have your ancestry looked into. You got your service. They're basically selling your information. It's always going to be the case on the internet. You are the product, obviously. Again, I hope that a company that has the best intentions buys this information, or the government steps in and decides who can or cannot buy this trove of 15 million customers' information. That would be probably in all of the countries who this concerns best interest. And let me give you an idea of what somebody nefarious could actually do with this. For example, if somebody was trying to do something like, I don't know, gain-of-function testing, or even something like creating bioweapons, there are things that you could actually use a whole entire country's genetic information for if you're creating things like bioweapons. Obviously, I hope that is never the case. But generally speaking, something like this is not out of the realm of possibilities. And might I add, we obviously have had problems with gain-of-function testing before, pretty recently actually. And whether or not this is dual-use technology where individuals are creating a vaccine, they preemptively creating vaccines or whatever. Generally speaking, if you were creating, let's say, a bioweapon, it would be extremely useful to have a whole entire country's genetic information, or even just a large amount of it. But I thought this was a really interesting story. Obviously, if you do have information on these websites, maybe delete it. That's up to you. You're taking your own risks while you're on the internet. So I hope you like this video. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe.